I've been looking forward to this hour since, well, a couple of days ago when I knew it was going to do today, and that is my good friend Jim Geraghty. I've known Jim for, 20 some odd years. The senior political contributor over, political correspondent over at National Review, a columnist for the Washington Post, longtime weekly guest on this program. Hello, Jim. How are you? Happy Thanksgiving.
Dwayne, belated happy Thanksgiving. Happy Black Friday to everyone who celebrates.
Cyber Monday
Giving
or whatever,
Monday?
something like that, right?
Charity Tuesday, spend more money Wednesday. It's turned into this, like, every day gets a special label to it,
Yes, exactly.
Going to the
Maybe
Harris
this
campaign Thursday, help them
Yeah,
retire their debts.
what day is Kamala Harris fundraising day? Is that Kamala Wednesday or something? Hard to tell.
Dwayne, if I had to sum up the entire 2024 campaign, it's wasted money, wasted candidate.
I want to split the time I have with you on two subjects. I want to do the pardon, and I want to do Kash Patel and him symbolizing a lot of the nominations that Donald Trump has made to go into the agencies. But I guess the way to get into the pardon talk is the progressives and the regime media for the better part of 5 months engaged in this delusional fantasy that Kamala Harris could actually win the election. I really never did think that she could. The underlying data always looked to me like it really wasn't going to be as close as everybody said it was, and it really wasn't in the overall scheme of things, especially in the Electoral College. My delusional fantasy, my delusional thinking was that there would be some point of time in this administration where the Never Trump world, the entire universe of Never Trump world, while they wouldn't all ever get on board, at least some of them would look for the off-ramp and start to work their way back off the ledge a little bit. And I'll give you one case in point. Last night, after the pardon, Sarah Longwell, who publishes The Bulwark, says, during the Trump years, we watched an entire political party and its dedicated media apparatus decide that there was no bottom to what they were willing to excuse, defend, and what about. Standing against that also means refusing to do the same when Joe Biden goes back on his word and abuses his power. And I'm thinking, maybe, like the Dumb and Dumber, right? So you're saying there's a chance. And it lasted about 12 hours. The piece in the Bulwark this morning in defense of the Hunter Biden pardon by Kim Wheel. So I guess that was just a delusional fantasy, Jim. Can't people that are on the right, conservatives, they may not like Trump, but can't conservatives look at what Joe Biden did here and say, this pretty much stinks to high heaven. Maybe it's probably best that he's not around.
What I saw the news breaking last night, was thinking about how I was going to write about it in today's Morning Jolt, and somebody had said, who's going to write the piece entitled "The Conservative Case for the Hunter Biden Pardon"? And the Bulwark, surprise, surprise. Previewing today's Morning Jolt today, Dwayne, I went through the White House transcripts. And I've come up with 10 times. I know Fox News found 6 times Karine Jean-Pierre. 10 times between Biden's interview questions, written statements, and Karine Jean-Pierre speaking from the White House podium, insisting on a stack of Bibles, swearing on their mother's grave that there was no way that Joe Biden was going to pardon his son, that the very question was absurd.
Now or in the future, we're not going to do that.
100%. And they were explicit. There was no wiggle room. There was no doubts about that. I see the David Moore interview. Biden was emphatic. And now the election's over. Oh, never mind. I never meant any of that stuff.
And we all knew it was a lie. Everybody knew it was a lie.
Right. Like, hang on, you young whippersnapper. I gave you my word as a Biden, right? By the way, Joe Biden runs around when he's not senile, when he's aware of what's going on. He walks around and says things like, I give you my word as a Biden. And he thinks that means something to people. He thinks that real, oh, well, okay, well, we can take that to the bank because he said he's giving us his word as a Biden. He also kept insisting that Joe Biden was that Hunter Biden was one of the smartest people he knew, and one of one of the most moral, noble people. Right, Dwayne? He took tax deductions on prostitutes.
Yes.
Exotic dancer. Like, here's the.
Yes.
It's not. I'm not even giving him grief about sleeping with
Wrote
prostitutes.
off strip clubs. Yes.
No, it was the taking them as a business deduction. That is the part where I'm like, no, that's a bridge too far. And Joe Biden couldn't bring himself to say this was whenever this was brought up, which was rare. It was always in the context of, oh, he's got an addiction problem, right? By the way, Hunter Biden's addiction did not make Joe Biden deny that he had 7 grandkids for 4 years, right? Yes. And Hunter Biden didn't make them stop putting the stockings up at the White House for all the Biden grandkids. This is not really a Hunter Biden issue. This is a Joe Biden issue. This is, how does Joe Biden treat people? And in the end, he believes that his son should be above the law, that there should be no, and in the audacity, in his public statement, he has the nerve to say, I never interfered with the Justice Department's decisions. Okay, but you're interfering with the justice system's decisions. And what's the point of saying, well, I'm going to let the Justice Department do whatever the heck they want. I'm going to trust the jury's decision. If at the last second I'm going to come out and say, never mind, I'm taking away 6 felony convictions and 6 misdemeanors. This is just the tax stuff. This is just the gun stuff. We haven't even gotten to the influencing, peddling stuff. And oh, by the way, this is the entire time Joe Biden is running around the country saying the rich aren't paying their fair taxes, and Hunter Biden just didn't pay them for like 5 years. Anyway, can you tell I'm fired up about this, Dwayne?
Absolutely. The pardon went from January of 2014, 3 months before his addiction problem,
right?
took him to Burisma's board, and it rolled through midnight last night. So for 12 hours after the pardon was issued, it was party time, right? I mean, he could do whatever his beyond the dreams of avarice could he conjure up, he could pull off and do carte blanche, because the pardon covered him through midnight.
The argument we're getting really from Biden and the inner circle, and really the most shameless hacks, and I guess you can throw the Bulwark in there, is that, well, if his name wasn't Hunter Biden, he never would have been prosecuted for any of this stuff. If his name wasn't Hunter Biden, he'd probably be dead by now.
Yes, that's exactly right.
He has made the worst possible decision at every possible, crux every moment. Every addiction program, like when most people get stopped with, crack pipes in their car, right? Lots of guys go to strip clubs. Very few end up impregnating the stripper. Lots of guys end up in child support fights. Very few get away with saying, oh, I'll give you some paintings that you can resell later. Yep. Hunter Biden has operated by special rules and more lenient treatment than anybody else on earth his entire life. And Joe Biden has enabled these bad decisions over and over again. And here the final chapter. Joe Biden is leaving office as a disgraced president. Not just for this reason. This was just the cherry on top. This was just the ultimate example. A guy who insisted he was not too old, proved to be too old. You got to wonder how many years. And he does this, issuing a statement and then flying to frickin' Angola, not taking any questions, not answering any.
Yes.
I just.
Can you go longer if we roll you over for one segment? Because I want to do Kash Patel. We'll start here, and then when the music hits, we'll go over. The Kash Patel, the Jay Bhattacharya going into NIH, just Brendan Carr at the FCC, all these agents of change that are coming up. I'm going to preface the question. We're going to go to break, and I'll let Jim answer it. My question is, as a conservative, regardless of what you think about Donald Trump, as a conservative, the battle that is shaping up to finally, quote unquote, drain the swamp or actually attack the administrative state and reduce the size of the federal government and reduce the scope and power of the federal agencies. That battle that we conservatives have been trying to wage for a long, long time, we are now on the opening throes of that battle. And I think it's a really, really good thing. I want to see what Jim Geraghty thinks on the other side of this and where he thinks this is going to go. When we come back, Tedeschi Trucks Band right there as the finest bumper music in all of radiodom takes place whenever I fill in. Dwayne Patterson in for Hugh, joined by Jim Geraghty of National Review. All sorts of great content there. The 3 Martini Lunch, Morning Jolt, writes all sorts of great books. Good, dear friend of ours, has been for 20 some odd years. At Jim Geraghty on Twitter X. Jim, you may not like the general, you may not like the guy at the top, but isn't this the battle we conservatives have wanted against the bureaucratic state for generations?
Oh, I will be pulling for the guys at the DOG, Department of Government Efficiency. I do periodically wonder if all of these cabinet picks know what they're in for. The whole point of my, it was a novel that somehow made the Washington Post nonfiction bestseller list. It's on the wall behind me back there. The Weed Agency. It was all about how very rarely will the bureaucratic class tell a new cabinet official, secretary, undersecretary, secretary, something like that. They'll never say no, we won't do that. They always say yes, sir, we'll do that, and then they never get around to it. And then they, say, well, we run into delays. We have to hold another meeting on that. We have to publish this in the Federal Register. There has to be a public comment period for that, anywhere from 30 days to 120 days. They have just an amazing ability of bringing the gears grinding to a halt, dragging their feet until the cabinet secretary, the person who came in there to reform it, ends up getting distracted and dealing with some other issues. If you work for the federal government in Washington, you're spending your career there, right? Cabinet secretaries, if they're lucky, are there 4 years. If you look back at Trump's term in the first term, you had a lot of people lasting about 2 years or so and then burning out. I would love to see these folks succeed. Some of them probably will succeed. I think Elon is going to attack this with an energy and dedication and excitement that we haven't seen for this sort of thing in years. I do wonder if certain folks like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. are ready to step into HHS and understand like just how much resistance they're going to get. But we'll see. I wish them well, and I can't say they're not all going to fail, but I don't necessarily think they're all going to.
Jay Bhattacharya at NIH, the Kash Patel thing going to FBI. I can't tell you how glorious that prospect is. I mean, you think Kash Patel doesn't go in there knowing what he's got to clean out?
Yeah, I'm also going to point out that Kash Patel's job, or the odds of his confirmation, got a lot better last night. But I don't love the pick. I'm just going to point out that, like, at some point in the coming weeks, Senate Democrats are going to say, look, we can't have Kash Patel become the next FBI director. The country can't have partisan politics and personal loyalties and connections to the president mucking around in the justice system. And
Eric Holder would like a word.
Yeah. Like, what are you kidding? And the moment you had what were the Lovebirds? Was it Page and
Strzok? Peter Strzok, yeah.
One of my all-time favorite pieces I've ever written was after Jim Comey retired, and he published his book, and he went on what I call the Resistance Tour, and he was on Stephen Colbert laughing it up and all that stuff. #resistance. Remember his, Instagram pictures of him walking in the woods and all that stuff. Other than Louis Freeh, who really was PO'd at Bill Clinton, you really didn't see FBI directors as partisan figures. And even Louis Freeh, like, you had to be paying attention to the FBI. He wrote a lot of stuff in his book, but otherwise it's not like he was out doing Republican fundraisers or stuff like that. One of my favorite, so like when you talk about the FBI, there are all kinds of people of anonymous sources, and you don't know whether this anonymous source at the FBI is the secretary who answers the phones or is it an assistant director, right? You just don't know. I spoke on the record to four prominent retired FBI agents, and I just kind of said to them, what do you think about the way Comey's going about his book tour and all that stuff? All of them, some of them had, liked Comey beforehand. Some of them did not like him, but all of them said this is really bad for the image of the Bureau. I almost feel like once that happened, this was almost inevitable. That it was almost inevitable that you would see Republicans wanting somebody to go in to be their own hatchet man, to be their own person who's going to go in there with an axe to grind and attempt to use it and say, I am going to investigate anybody with a D after their name for any potential wrongdoing, and I'm going to make their life miserable. Which, by the way, is not how I want to see the department.
But I'm not convinced I'm not convinced that that's what they're going to do. It seems like what they're going to do is just blow people out and rid the place of a bunch of corruption. They're just going to clean things out. They're not going to intentionally, maliciously prosecute people necessarily, as much as they're going to just say, we're done with all this, and blow people out. That's what I think everybody's demanding, and I think that's the easiest thing to do, is to start firing people and, take your licks in court. That's fine, but my gracious, this is the fight that conservatives have been longing for as long as I can remember.